Nick Wright, first things first. Yeah, he's not going to be happy. You know that going in. By the way.
It's just so bad. It's just, do you realize what you did there? You did two things there.
What?
Hi, Colin.
Hi.
One is, you have 7 of the 8 division winners from last year winning their division again, with the one exception being a team whose quarterback has won the division every year of his career and this is not a misquote, is a career 35-5 against divisional opponents. That's the first thing you did that I think you're going to want back. The second thing you did was more indirect, but from listening to your own words, you have the Arizona Cardinals, the New England Patriots, and the Kansas City Chiefs all winning the same amount of games. That doesn't feel dumb to you? I hate to use that word, but doesn't just on its face that feel like, you know what? Maybe I need to recalibrate this one just a touch. Just a touch if I have the Chiefs in the same bucket as the Cardinals and the Patriots.
Okay.
Just an idea.
Okay. Well, I'll give it some thought. I've still got 2 more,
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, when you put it that way, it is fairly egregious.
Yeah,
I know.
It is. And everyone else, God knows, you can't, every other division winner's earned the benefit of the doubt, except for a team that won 17 games last year and has been to 3 straight Super Bowls. But they looked bad in the Super Bowl. How'd the Chargers look in their Super Bowl, which is called the wild card round, when your golden boy Herbert threw more picks than he did all year? But never mind. It's fine. Whatever. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's have some fun. So I defended Tatum. This was an easy day for my brand to come in and bury him. But I said that the Celtics are a little like the Warriors. They're paralyzed by the three-point shot. At least the Warriors in their prime had like a different player, Draymond Green, and he could sometimes be the catalyst, and even though it was small ball, they could have kind of a different look sometimes. Tatum is such a good guy and so collaborative. And he's got great handles. He's 6'8". He could beat anybody in the league, including Mikal Bridges, to the basket. But I find their culture is so overwhelmingly shoot a 3 that a couple of times he beat guys off the dribble and he backed out and shot a bad off-balance 3. And I thought, he's such a good guy that he's not going to impose his will. He's taking 3-pointers. This team was last in the league in free throws, 3rd last in layups. They play one way. And I think Tatum's too gifted to say, this is what you've got to be offensively. I think I'm giving him a little pass that some of this is this paralyzation in Boston of you can only score one way.
Well, listen, it might end up being smart. They won the championship doing it last year. Last night, they missed 45 threes, and they're still in overtime. And so stylistically, I don't enjoy it as much as I enjoy watching different styles of play. And I would hate it if the entire league moves to that, so much so that I would think the league might need to adjust how it does three-pointers, similar to how baseball made adjustments, just because I don't think it's as good of a viewing experience. In regards to Tatum, listen, Tatum is going to have nights like this in the playoffs. We know that. He's also going to have stretches like he had at the end of last series where he's scoring 35 every single night, those final 3 games. I have one real gripe with Tatum last night. Guys are going to miss shots. It happens.
Yeah.
I thought the final possession of regulation, he let the Knicks off the hook. In a tie game, the fact that he was just content to dribble out the shot clock essentially and then take a tough 3, I thought was a mistake. I think that in that setting where you're not going to be able to hold for the last shot because there was a 4 or 5 second differential, I think that's the one right there. I just think you can get a better look for yourself or for a teammate.
Yes.
I don't think you should ever treat a possession with 15 seconds left in a tie game the exact way you would treat it if you're trailing by 2, and that's to me what he did. So I thought that was a mistake, but I do like this is where you're great. Tatum might score 38 in game 2, and that'll be the day you're like, listen, he's really good, but he's not great. And then he has a terrible game, and you're like, let me let him off the hook. He's too nice of a guy. And so I also didn't love. Can I say something about the Knicks, or are we moving on?
No, we can talk. I don't think they're going to win another game in the series, but go ahead.
So they might not. The flip side is, if they can get one more, they guarantee themselves a Game 6 at Madison Square Garden, which will be the biggest basketball game played in that arena, professional game, this century. It will be the biggest Knicks game at home since the run to the finals in '99. But here's what is so exciting for the Knicks about stealing that win yesterday. They built an entire team, Colin, around this series. Every move they made in the offseason, they traded for OG, so they had someone who could guard Tatum and Brown. They traded for Mikal Bridges, so they had someone who could guard Tatum and Brown. They then broke up the Villanova core before they even let them all play together after getting Mikal to move off Julius Randle to bring in Karl Anthony Towns, with the idea being, you guys have 5 quality to great starters in Boston. We're going to have the same thing in New York. All of it is building. They built an entire team with just the Celtics in mind, similar to how the Rockets used to build their team with the Warriors in mind. That's the team we have to get through. And now, after getting annihilated the first 3 times they played in the regular season, they played them at the end of the regular season, went to overtime, and they lost. They played them last night, it went to overtime, and they won. It would be so disastrous for the Knicks to get run off the court in this series the way Vegas thought they would, the way I think you and I both probably thought they would. Stealing that first game and now putting real pressure on Boston, that Boston's got to feel like, we need to win the next 3, or else we are guaranteeing that this is going at least 6 to MSG. And so I thought it was an awesome win for a team that built their entire roster with this one series in mind.
So I before I get to the Warriors, I want to talk Lakers for a second. You had a very interesting take, and I gave you credit for this yesterday. I thought it was, I think Bomani and you both had something similar, where you talked about, if you go back to J.J. Redick at Duke, never won a title, had his worst game in March in a pressurized situation. He was a great shooter, had a terrible game. And so I watched your rant, and then I went to his NBA career stats, playoff and regular season.
Same thing. Never
hit a big shot in the playoffs of note. It's like, wow, he was significantly less of a player. And then you watch him coaching, and I thought he got worked. And I thought to myself, well, if you had a short temper as a human being at work, you probably have it at home. We do carry over personality traits. He's always been this great-looking, really smart, really talented guy who clearly puts a ton of self-imposed pressure, right? Like, nobody else. It's JJ on JJ. And I think it was an interesting take that hey, maybe you're going to see him coach like he played a little bit here. And I don't think that's a crazy take, is it?
No, listen, I think that there are certain guys who get tight. And I think some people reflexively thought that it was unfair for me to bring up 19-year-old J.J. Redick and his performance in the Sweet 16 in talking about 40-year-old J.J. Redick in his performance in his first playoffs coaching. But he has an entire 20-year basketball history of, he is at his worst when the stakes are the highest, and I think that is purely because he's wound a little too tight.
Yeah.
I think you saw it before Game 5 when he was snapping at the reporters for asking totally reasonable questions, where he is actually projecting, where he says to the reporter, oh, are you saying that because I'm inexperienced, when the reporter said nothing about his lack of experience. I think that sometimes you are who you are, and the good thing about being a coach versus being a player is, if you're a player who gets tight in big moments, that can physically manifest itself in a way. Now that he's not playing, I really think it's like about meditation and outlook and things he can do to just not be wound quite so tight.
Yes.
Because I do think JJ was excellent this year.
So do I.
Obviously, he puts the work in. Obviously, he's sharp. But when you have a long track record of seizing up in the biggest moments, by the way, anyone that's shocked by another James Harden stinker in a Game 7, that's another guy. Go look at his 2 NCAA tournament games. This has been who he's been since Arizona State, where he's at his worst in the biggest moments. I think as a coach he can adjust, but that takes a self-awareness that I think maybe JJ is lacking just a bit.
So I was saying this earlier, and it goes kind of counterintuitive of what people would think, because I'm a Dubs fan and I love Steph and everybody does. I said privately, the minute Adam Silver signed that $76 billion deal, it's up to NBC, ESPN, and Amazon to figure out how to make money on that. He's looking to the next negotiation, and he doesn't want the 8 best players to be international. He needs a domestic face. It's not a survival, but it helps. Aaron Judge hitting 400. Rob Manfred is sleeping very well right now with the Yank, right? So I said, privately, if you asked Adam Silver, he'd be like, hey, LeBron and Steph didn't play last night. You couldn't keep your eyes off the NBA. I want Ant to win. I think privately he is saying, handsome, got the Riz, great. He's knocked out KD. He's knocked out Booker. He's knocked out Luka. He's knocked out Jokic. I think privately the league wants Minnesota to win. They've squeezed Steph and the Warriors. They've squeezed the juice. I think the league wants Minnesota to advance. And I think it helps. I think
that it would be better for them long term for sure. I think one of the mistakes the league has made from a programming standpoint is a short-term thinking as far as, well, the Lakers and the Warriors get the biggest number, so put them in the regular season in the prime slots, and they haven't conditioned the audience to look at Shea as a superstar, to look at, I'll go to Paolo Banchero as a future superstar. Ant, obviously. Now, Ant's gone on these playoff runs to where he has forced the issue, making the conference finals last year and this year knocking out Luka and LeBron. I also think it doesn't much matter who the league wants to win. It's not the David Stern NBA where we got a ref we can call in and be like, hey, man, we need 11 fouls in the first quarter on the Sacramento Kings. Lakers got to keep it moving. But regardless of who the league wants to win, I do not know how anyone could have watched round 1 and feel like the Warriors are in a good position in this matchup.
Oh, I think they're in big trouble. Big trouble.
I think they're in huge trouble, Colin. Minnesota can do to Golden State what Houston did on the defensive end, but they've got guys who can score on the offensive end. And if Steven Adams gave you massive trouble, what about new and improved Rudy Gobert? And there's the other element of Draymond already being on a knife's edge of flagrant foul and technical accumulation to where he's staring at another postseason suspension. So this reminds me, Colin, a ton of the playoffs 2 years ago when the Warriors were in a brutal 7-game series against a young, fun Sacramento Kings team. Steph in that Game 7 had 50. They got through it, and then they were dead on arrival against the Lakers. Now, again, a lot of NBA Twitter has pretended that series didn't happen because the new narrative is this is Steph's era, but the Steph and LeBron played 2 years ago in the playoffs. Lakers handled them pretty quickly. I think a similar thing's going to happen here. I think Minnesota wins tonight. I think Minnesota is the more rested team, obviously the deeper team. I think they are the healthier team, and I think they're the better team. And I think this is a really tough matchup for Golden State.
By the way, didn't prep you on this at all, but I'm going to throw this out there. You're younger than me, and so maybe your generation is different. But when guys say you got to shoot your shot, and I always think, oh, really? So Abdul Carter's like, hey, I'm going to ask to see if I can get Lawrence Taylor's jersey. It's like, no, timeout. I think less of you asking. And I think when guys always say you got to shoot your shot, well, does that mean if I look like George Clooney and flew Gulfstreams everywhere, I could just hit on your wife? Hey, you got to shoot your shot. No, there are certain things you do out of basic decency in the world that you don't do. Like you don't if I invite you and your wife to a party and you say, hey, we couldn't find a babysitter. Can I bring my kids? And you tell me this 5 minutes before. I'd be like, well, okay, but, you know, I don't really have.
Correct.
Right. So
Yeah.
this idea that you should just ask. Drake May should just ask if he can wear Brady, or Abdul Carter should ask if you can wear Lawrence. I am bothered by the ask of it. Am I just an old man?
100% agree. No, yes, you are an old man, but you are correct on this. And you and I are, sidebar, different generations. One thing our two generations, though, have in common, Colin, is neither one of us should be on television saying the word Riz. So I don't know when you added that one to your vernacular, but let's put that one back in the drawer. But on this specific point, you're 100% correct, and I'm going to take it a step further. You are right that the idea of, oh, there's no harm in asking is just anathema to how human beings work. Like, you go to a job interview and midway through it be like, by the way, unlimited vacation? I figured I'd ask. Like, no, that's not how adult human beings work. I am adding something to it, though. In the NFL, when a guy goes to a team and someone else has the number he wants, normally the ask involves, and I'll give you $100,000 or buy you a car or something like that. I'm even more bothered that these asks didn't include some signing bonus money. Like Abdul Carter, your number 3 pick. Like if you call up Lawrence Taylor, like, hey, I want to wear 56 and here's $250,000. Yeah. Maybe there's a conversation. You would ask if there was someone on the Giants wearing the number he wanted, that guy would be offered money. So if you're going to ask the greatest defensive player ever and just ask him to do it as a favor, that's even worse. But yes, I agree with you. Also, last point on this, Mitch Schwartz made this point. I think a few other people have, and it's smart. It shouldn't even be, if a team has retired a number, that shouldn't even be allowed. Like, even if Lawrence had said yes, the Giants need to be out in front of this being like, no, it's a retired number. It's not about Lawrence. We retired it. You can't have it because we're not unretiring it. That way you take the onus off Lawrence Taylor and Phil Simms' family. But yeah, I didn't like the ask either, I'll be honest with you.
One last thing. You do realize why I use Riz.
I don't.
Because I stand on business.
Okay, see, this is, I don't know why this has become a thing. But maybe you've gotten to a point to where it's like the circle is completed, so you can just say anything, and it's not cringe, it's just charming. But I'm telling you right now, I don't need Colin Cowherd talking about Riz or standing on business. Okay. I don't need it. Maybe the audience does.
All right. Good seeing
you,
you,
man.
buddy.